Okay, so thank you guys for coming today. We're going to talk about how we can understand our credit reports and credit scores and what we can do to improve them if we need to. So understanding and improving your FICO score. So the first thing is like, what is that? I don't know what that means. So understanding what's the difference between credit and debit. So a credit is the ability we have to borrow money to make purchases. It's money given to us with the promise that we're going to repay it. They're charging you interest, so they're lending you money, but the payback is you're going to pay back more than what you borrowed. It's usually used for major purchases like cars and homes. It's really difficult to buy a home with cash. It's somewhat difficult to buy a car with cash unless it's a beginning car. But you can also use it for minor purchases, credit cards, in stores and things like that. Usually that's a much higher interest rate and you want to try to not do that. Then debt is the amount of money that you owe as a result of the credit that you've used. So understanding the difference between what's a credit score and what's a credit report, because they're two different things. So a credit report, here's my credit report. It's 44 pages because I'm old and have had credit for a long, long time. Your guys' credit reports would not be this long. This is 44 pages front and back. Shows everything about me from the age of 18 to 62 that I have done in the world of credit. And so a credit report is a summary of your entire history. You can get a free one from each of the 3 agencies every year, and we'll talk about why it's important to do that and how to do that. It has your name, address, social security number, the type of credit you use, the date you started that new credit line, how much balance you have, what you owe, and how much credit you have available. If your accounts are in collections, which you do not want to do, but they'll be showing on there, any recent credit, any information if you file for bankruptcy, have a lien against any of your property, or if you have a court judgment. If you apply for credit, they usually do what's called a hard credit line, a hard credit check, and those count against you. On your credit report, it's a ding, so you want to not apply for credit frequently because it lowers your credit score. So here's a great example. My daughter is building a house. My husband and I are helping in that effort. Come Black Friday, they had all these great sales, and so I go to Lowe's and I open a credit card so that we can get these special Black Friday deals and get this 0 interest for a year. So it's worth it because we're getting no interest for a year, but it also put a ding on my credit report and dropped one of my 5 categories from an A to a B. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So apply for credit wisely. Now a credit score is a number that you get, and it's determined. There are 3 major credit agencies, and it's a formula that these 3 agencies use to determine your credit worthiness. Unfortunately, the 3 credit agencies don't use the same guidelines. So with one agency, it might be a 600 to a 850. Another agency might be a 500 to a 700, and so you can't compare the 3 agencies. You can also get a free credit score, but you have to know where to get it because most companies want to charge you for your credit score, but there are places to get a free one. It is a very short thing. It just shows the amount of debt you owe, the length of your credit history, the makeup or the mix of your credit history, and how much new credit you've applied for. It doesn't give you nearly as much detail. And utility companies or phones. So let's say you move and you have to establish a gas bill. So they're going to do what's called a soft inquiry, and those don't impact your score in a negative way. Okay, so credit report is long, very, very detailed. Credit score is a numerical base, and it's a much shorter. It doesn't have nearly as much information to it. Okay, I'll give you an example. I was online today looking at what our loan rates, because we're building a home, we have a construction loan, that's going to turn into a homeowner's loan as soon as we're finished. So I was looking to see what are the rates in the market today. I did an inquiry, and if the moment I hit send, I didn't get a phone call from a lending tree wanting to offer me credit immediately. I said to them, is this going to be a hard credit inquiry or is this a soft credit inquiry? Because I wanted to know, is this going to impact my credit score or not? So those are the kinds of things you want to know. So let's talk about this. By law, you used to have to pay to get your credit scores not that long ago, but by law now you are entitled to a free credit report once a year. There are lots, if you Google that, you're gonna find a lot of companies that want to give you your free credit report, and then when you get in there, it's not really free. So the key is to find one that's really free. So this is the one I like to use, annualcreditreport.com. And it is free one a year. Now remember, there are 3 different agencies. So you can get all 3 of them at the same time, but don't do that. Spread them out over the year, and here's why. I requested my first one. We started thinking about building this home in October. So I requested my first one back in October. And my credit score was like just good. I'm like, why is my credit score good and not excellent? My husband's was 100 points higher than mine. I'm like, how can that be? So I started looking at my free credit report, and there was a hospital bill on there from my son and daughter-in-law. Has absolutely nothing to do with me, that had gone into collections. They hadn't paid it, it had gone into collections. It was showing up on my credit. I have no idea why that showed on my credit. The only thing we ever shared in common was, of course, he had my address when he lived at home. So you can get things taken off your credit report if they're wrong. So you call the credit company, then they're gonna tell you, call that company. So I called Freeman Hospital. You have to give your name and social. And I'm like, look this up, tell me what this is. They could find nothing in my name and number, so they corrected it, and that increased my credit score about 10 points right then and there. So 4 months later, I requested my second free credit score from a second company, and I'll be, if there wasn't a, it showed my credit card balances were like $10,000 higher than what I thought they were. So I looked through my credit report to see what it is, and it's in my husband's name because you're separate. If you're married, your credit report is yours and his credit report is his. So he had a credit card that we've been using to get materials to build this house in his name, but it was showing up on my credit report. So it was making me look like I had $10,000 more worth of debt than what I really have. So I contact that company and I say, why is this on my credit report? I think it was Bank of America or someone. And again, it was one of those 0 interest cards. And they said, well, your husband has you listed as an authorized user, which means I can use the credit card, but I'm in no way obligated to pay it back. So I said, take that off my credit report. And when they did, my credit score jumped 100 points. Because one of the ways they determine your credit score is how much debt you have compared to how much income you have. So that's your debt to income ratio. And so I got that off my credit score. Then just last week, I requested my third credit score, and what was on there? A credit card my daughter had. It was a Discover, and it came up on the, so your credit report when you get it is, there are several things in order, and the first one that comes up is suspect stuff. And if I printed this in color, it'd be in red, and I'm like, why do I have red on my credit report? So I called, yep, it was Discover. And it shows it was opened in October of 10, but then it shows it was a charge-off starting September of 2014, meaning it wasn't being paid, and so they wrote it off. And then they report that to your credit. So I call them, give them my name, give them my social security number, they look it all up. Absolutely nothing. I have absolutely no credit with this particular company at all. So they report to the credit bureau and they take it off of your account. So that's why I tell you, yes, you can get a free credit score, but don't take all 3 of them at the same take. Take one, 4 months later, request another, 4 months later, request another, and then look it over and find the mistakes and get them taken off. Yes, ma'am, question?
Is it like a long process? Is it like a long
It's a
depth process to get stuff taken off your credit?
In my 3 instances, it was off in 24 hours. Because I'd call the credit score company and I'd say, tell me what this is. And in this case, it was a Discover. And of course, they don't put all your credit account numbers on here. They'll just do the last 4 digits. And so I say, it says the last four digits are this, and I give them my name, I give them my birthday, and they look me up and they say nothing. And so then they report it to the credit agency, and it was off within 24 hours. In the instance where it was the hospital, it was Freeman that had it on my bill, I called Freeman Hospital, it was off of my account within 24 hours. Now, where it can take a long time is if I say this is a mistake and the credit bureau says call the company, and if the company disagrees with me, in my three cases, we were all in agreement. But if it's where I am saying one thing and the company is saying, no, that's the opposite, then you have to file in writing a request. Then the credit union company contacts the debtor and they get their side of the story, and then they make a decision. Now, in that case, that can take up to 30 days. So it can take a while, but in these three cases, when I called the company, they agreed with me that, yeah, it was an error and it wasn't supposed to be on my credit report. So, what you want to do is, if you have one point and the debtor has another point, any correspondence you've had, if you've had emails with them or letters in the mail or anything like that, you'll send copies of that into the credit agency. Yep, question?
Okay, so, not to disclose my personal business, but
Yep.
like with debt people, if you pay it off, how long does it take for it to get off of your credit?
It never gets off your credit for 7 years.
Okay.
Anything that you've done stays on your credit. Like if you file bankruptcy, that stays on your credit report for 7 years, then it goes off.
Okay, so like,
Yeah.
I paid it, so it'll still be on there, cause my credit score went up, but it's still showing like, you had this collection on there, but it's fully paid off now, so.
Right. So it is gonna stay on there for 7 years. Like I said, this stuff goes back a long, long
But it
time.
still stays on there, right?
But it
just
stays
doesn't
on
count
here.
against
It doesn't count against you. So my first credit was probably established in 1976 when I turned 18. So that's why my credit report is 44 pages long.
So when you go to buy a house or whatever, and if it's been past those 7 years, even if they get a report like that, or would the company or the bank get a report if they're loaning you money?
They're always gonna do a hard credit inquiry. If you're going for a car, a house, a big ticket item.
So it would still affect you in some way?
It will not affect you past 7 years. So I'll give you a good personal example. My daughter has a lot of medical issues, a lot. And before the Affordable Care Act, she didn't have health insurance. And so she had over $100,000 in medical bills. Obviously, she's not gonna be able to pay that off. She was 20-some years old. And so she's now in the process of cleaning up her credit, and anything that's, like she has something that's getting ready to fall off because 7 years will go. And so she's also been trying to get her credit score improved, and she's raised hers about 80 points since October. So there are ways to fix it. The starting point is get your credit score or get your credit report, look over it with a fine-tooth comb and find those mistakes. And they're really easy because they're right at the beginning. So this was the only thing I had that showed up in red. Everything else was showing up in green. So I knew this was the only thing I needed to fix. So, okay, thank you guys. If you need to call your credit scores, the 3 credit companies, you can be on hold forever and a day. You keep pushing buttons and you keep pushing and you never get a human being. This is how you get a human being. So here are the 3 credit scores: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And different companies use different companies. So we bank at Arvest, they use TransUnion. But different places where you apply for credit will use different companies. So that's why you want to request your free copy from each of the companies, but not at the same time. So this is how to talk to a human being. If you need to call these, this is what the magic things you push to get through to a human being, so you're not on hold forever. Okay, so when you get your sample credit report, so I've showed you how to get one, you're gonna get a report like this. There are 10 different parts to it, and so this link will explain that to you, but I just wanted to highlight for you guys. So the very first part is your report number. So every time you request, you get a report number. If you ever need to call, you use that number. So here's my report number. It's got my name, my birthday, my social security number, just the last 4 digits showing. And then I was telling someone, I've got 10 addresses posted on here. I have lived in 4 houses since I turned 18. So I'm looking at these addresses thinking, my oldest son's first house he bought is on here, my youngest son's house where he lives now is on here, and my daughter's 4 houses are on here. So I called them and said, take all these addresses off here. And then there's 4 numbers on here. 2 of them are my daughter's numbers. So I call them and I say, take those off of here. Then your employers, whoever you've worked for, those show up on here. And then, so that takes you to the top part. And then the second part then is an index part. And that's this part right down here that talks about how you're scored. Like your bills were paid on time, they're current, or they were 30 days late, or they were 60 days late, or 90 days late. So it's kind of the chart that tells you the guide that, like a COL stands for collections, and a VS is a voluntary surrender. So it's just a guideline explaining. And then you go on down and you come to what they call suspect items on here. On here it's called adverse accounts. So these are the ones that you're saying something is wrong, you know, this is either one, maybe bankruptcy would be under there, or late payments start showing up in there. So when I see adverse accounts and it's in red, I'm like, uh-oh, something is wrong, I have got to call and get that fixed. And then after that, everything becomes green, and so here's all the credit I've had. It's a whole bunch over my lifetime. And fortunately, everything is in green from that point on, but I wasn't always there. I've worked very hard to get this up. Okay, so sample parts of a credit report. So this is how you get your free credit report. You go to that website, annualcreditreport.com. You have to give important information like your social security number, which you want to guard, but it's okay to give that on here. You have to fill out a form. So this is what the form looks like: your first name, your middle initial, your last name. How many of you have a legal first name that you don't go by? Like my real name is Deborah, but no one calls me that but my mama if I'm in trouble. And so I always sign Debbie on everything, but your credit report, on here, on my credit report, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different names listed on here, because sometimes when I applied just Debbie for it, sometimes I applied Debbie A for it, sometimes Deborah A for it, sometimes just Deborah for it, and sometimes Deborah Ann for it. So try to get consistent on when you're applying for stuff, and probably use your legal name, but I just didn't know to do that. So the first page is just this. The second page, you give your social security number, your current address. If you've lived there more than 2 years, then you don't have to give other addresses, but if not, you give other addresses. The third page then shows previous addresses. And then right here is where you click. Do you want all 3 reports at the same time? If so, then click those. The day that I logged in, Experian, for whatever reason, was not available. Because see how it's ghosted, it's not bolded there. But what I strongly recommend to you is only request 1 of them at a time. If I would have requested all 3 last October, I would never have found my husband's credit card on my account. I would never have found my daughter's credit card on my account, and my credit score would be 104 points lower than what it is. So we're building this house, and we're about a month away from getting a permanent loan on that. The difference between me having a good credit score and having an excellent credit score is a whole point interest difference, which over the life of a 30-year loan is going to make about $80,000 difference in what we would pay back. So credit scores are very, very important, and you want to get your credit score as high as you can. But my recommendation here is choose 1 at a time. 4 months later, go back on, request another one. 4 months later, go back on and request the last one. Don't request them all at once, or you'll miss errors for a whole year.
Do having extra little errors, like all these unnecessary addresses or phone numbers or extra, like Johnson, maybe that they're saying you worked, you didn't, does that affect your credit score?
I don't think it does, but this one was from TransUnion, was the last one. So I just called TransUnion and said, please take off these addresses, please take off these phone numbers.
They do it with that.
And they did it just fine.
Okay, because right now, like I have, they say I use nicknames, which I never use. Like it's a name that I think it comes from someone who just couldn't pronounce my last name. And then I have like addresses on there too that I've never lived at.
Right. You can just call and tell them. I mean, it was a quick call. I used that other screen on how to bypass and get to a human being. And I said, take off, and I told them exactly address number 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9. Take those addresses off. I have never lived there, and they took them off just like that. You don't have to provide anything because it's your credit report. So, and you weren't involving any agencies. You were just reporting on you. So
So Debbie,
Yes.
Would you say that the higher your credit score is, the less interest you have to
Okay,
pay?
so the higher your credit score, because there are ranges and we're gonna look at that. So the higher your credit score, the better interest rate you get. So whether it's fair or not, it's just how it is. If you go to get car insurance, a car loan, a house, anything, they're gonna run your credit score. They're gonna run your credit report and they're gonna give you your loan based on your credit score, and that's how they determine how much interest. So this morning when I went online to look to see, this house is probably gonna be worth $125,000 and we're gonna probably borrow $100,000. So I put in $100,000 at 3.5% versus $100,000 at 4.5%. And it was a huge amount of difference in the interest. So if we borrowed $100,000 at 3.5%, we'd be paying back about $150,000 over the life of the loan if she goes for 30 years, which never do that. If you can afford to go 15 or 20 years, go the short amount as possible because it's less interest you pay. But if she took 30 years, $100,000 over 4.5% interest, it was a lot of difference, like $80,000 in difference over 30 years that she would pay back in interest. So the total loan payback on that loan was going to be $283,000 or something on a $100,000 house. You know, that's crazy. So, okay, so then you will get your, it's going to give you a screen like this, and so this is my credit report that they send to you digitally. But then yesterday when I got home, I had a hard copy in the mail too, and I meant to bring that, but I forgot to bring it. So you'll get a digital copy immediately, and then they'll send a paper copy in the mail to you also. Okay? All right. Now, before they'll give you your credit score, so you're still on that free credit score, they're going to ask you to confirm your identity because they want to make sure that is really you. So in my case, we need to ensure you are really Deborah. They asked me, what city did you live in 1994? And they had 4 cities listed there, and I had to choose the city I listed in. And then they asked me, which of these phone numbers have you previously used? That's why I wanted to get those phone numbers off of my account, because what if they put a phone number on there that one of my 3 kids used at some time, and somehow it showed on my credit report, and I said, well, I never use that, and then it said, oh yeah, it's on your credit report. Then they won't give you the digital copy. They'll only mail you the physical copy. And then the last one was, which of the following people have owned property in Atlanta? Well, I've never owned property in Atlanta, and I don't know anybody who owns property in Atlanta. So I said, none of the above. But this is how they confirm that it is really you, because it's things that if people had stolen your Social Security card for some reason they got that, unless they can answer these questions too, they're not going to get your credit report. So, okay. Then here, look, it says, would you like to add your TransUnion credit score? And if I say, yes, I'd like to see it, see it says offer details, they're going to charge me for that. You don't have to pay to see your credit score. There are ways to get it for free, and I'll show you those. So I wanted to copy that screen just to say to you, don't ever click on offer details. That means they want money.
So they don't put your credit score on the report they
No.
give you?
My credit score is nowhere on this report. It's just my credit history. So these 3, when you apply for these, you get your credit report. You do not get your credit score, okay? So we're gonna talk about how to get that. Okay, FICO. So what the heck even is a FICO score? So it's your credit score. It comes from the name Fair Isaac Company. These gentlemen started this company several years ago. There are 3 agencies, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. There are now some different ones out there that are starting up, but not worth mentioning yet. So they use a predictive analytics process. They take the information, this is how they get to your credit score. They take the information from your credit report, and they say, based on how much credit you have available, how much debt you have, how long you've had credit, how many credit inquiries, and how much money you make, we are forecasting that you probably would be able to pay your money back, and so we're going to give you this amount of loan. So it's all math, predictive analytics. They can forecast bankruptcy, profitability, payment patterns, like I owe X amount of dollars to, but I'm probably going to pay it back because I got 40 years of showing I pay back my bills, right? And then banks, insurance companies, car dealers, they use your score. They don't ever see this necessarily. They get your score and they make a loan to you based on your score. So this is why you want your score to be good. There are 5 factors that make up your credit score. 35% of your credit score is based on your payment history. So it's very important, pay your bills on time. If you miss a payment by 1 day or 2 days, call the company and say, I thought I had it set up to come out automatically, it did not. Please don't report that, and they will work with you. I had to do that not long ago. You'll notice on here on the key, it says 30 days late. There's not a 1 day late, 5 days late. The first step is 30 days late. So I think not, missing it by 1 or 2 days is not gonna hurt you, but I would always call, okay? 30% of your credit score is made up on your credit utilization. So you have a credit card that has $10,000 available on it. Have you used $9,000 of that, or have you only used $1,500 of that? So the key here is don't use more than 20% of your credit available on any given card. I have exceeded that, so in that category right now, I have a B. You get a grade, I'll show you that in a little bit. 15% of your score is based on your credit age. So when you pay a credit card off, don't close it out. Keep it open, just don't use it, or use it and pay it off. But if you close out all of your old accounts, which I didn't know and I did that, and that was a mistake, because now my credit age is 4 years and 11 months. Well, I've had credit, you guys, since 1976, but I didn't know to not close off my old accounts. So I closed off all of my old accounts, and so now I just have a handful of accounts, and they're considered relatively new accounts. To get an A in that category, then you have to have a credit history of 5 years or longer. And my credit history is 4 years, 11 months. So in a month, I'll have an A in that category. Right now, I have a B. So never ever close out old credit card accounts. Just leave. Here's a new thing they're doing. When I got my credit report, I had 3 or 4 credit cards that they closed out because I hadn't used them. I had a Walmart credit account, hadn't used it, they closed it out. I didn't know they could do that. I thought I had to be the one. I got a letter in the mail from a credit card company called Synchrony. It's where I bought my Apple laptop. And they said, we noticed you haven't used your credit card for 4 years. If you don't use it within the next 2 months, we're gonna close your account. So I used it, bought gas, paid it off, just so they didn't close it out. So my advice there is don't close out accounts. 10% of your account, of your credit score is based up in your account mix. So if you look on my credit report, my account mix is, I have student loans, I have credit cards, I have home mortgages, and I have car loans. So you have a mix of things. They want you to have a mix of things. It's not that you need to owe a lot on any one of those, but you just have a variety of things. And that comes with age. And then 10% is based on your credit inquiries. And so I didn't know that at the time. It's when I went and got that Lowe's card to build something, for her. And so that counted as an inquiry. And so to keep an A, you can't have any inquiries in the last 12 months. A B is 1 to 5 inquiries in the last 12 months. So I have a B there. And then come November, that inquiry from Lowe's will be gone because it was Thanksgiving, Black Friday when I made that. And then I'll have an A in that category too.
What was it be, 5 to 10?
A 5 to 10, and I'm going to show you that. So that's the mix. That's how they make up your credit score. So the big thing is pay on time and don't use more than 20% of your credit you have available on any one card, or 20% more of the total amount. Like right now I have a $110,000 available credit on the variety of credit cards that I have. So I should not use more than $20,000 in credit on credit cards, which sounds like a lot, but keep in mind I'm building a house, and so it adds up. So, okay. So here's the credit score range. So when I started this in October, I was, and again it depends on which category you're using. So I had a 660, which put me right here at the top of fair. And my husband had like a 740, and I'm like, how can that be? I don't understand this at all. And so that's when I got my first credit report to see what is going on, and that's when I found the first error on it. So poor or bad credit is if you're under the 640, and this is the scoring guide from TransUnion, which is the one my bank uses, so that's why I use this one. So if you're down there in the red, it's gonna be really hard to get a loan. Or if you get a loan, they're gonna jack the interest, and you're gonna pay like 20% interest on a car loan or 18% interest on a car loan. So you wanna move your credit score up, and it is possible to do that. A fair credit score, 640 to 680, you're not bad, you're not good, you have a few more options, you can start applying. Most banks or mortgage companies want you to have a 650. Some will work with you if you're close to 650. So you're starting to approach the age or the range where you're gonna get offers, and you're not gonna pay the highest rate, but you're also not gonna get the best rate, okay? Then when you get into the good category, then that's kind of like a B, if you're thinking of letter grade. So that was a D, then a C. Now we're getting up to kind of the letter B, and you're gonna find banks are gonna make more offers to you. When you go to buy a car, you're gonna get a decent credit rating, but your goal is you wanna get it up to excellent. So that is what I was able to do on my personal credit rating, and it was because I found those 3 errors and I got them off of my credit rating. When you get into the excellent, 750 or higher, that's like having an A if we think about schools. And that's where they're gonna look at all those. So I will tell you right now, we owe, keep in mind we're building a house, I probably have 4 or 5 credit cards that we have bought materials for building this house on that we probably owe $35,000 on right now for those. But they're all gonna, once we get the home loan, those will all be paid off. Every single one of those is a 0% interest. So I have $35,000 that I owe right now in building materials that I'm paying 0 interest on. And in May, when we're finished building this house, we'll roll that all over to the home loan, and my daughter will take on a house payment, and I will have no bills that I owe. But because my credit score is good, or now I'm in the excellent, but even when I was just in the good, I was able to get all these cards at 0% interest. So you want to, doesn't matter where you start. If you're in poor right now, that's okay. It's reality, you're in poor. Figure out the errors, figure out what you need to do to move yourself up. Yes?
So like with that, on my credit score, it tries to show like credit cards, and the interest rates are like 24 point something or something. So I don't know what kind of credit card to get when all of the interest rates are really high.
Good question, and I'm gonna show you something next that would help you with that. Okay, so credit myths that exist. My credit report's the same at all 3 bureaus. No, each bureau has their own rating system. Paying off debts, collections, take them off my report. No, they stay on your report 7 years. Lenders are required by law to report my payments. No, they're not actually required. Some report, some don't, most do. Utility companies usually don't report. AT&T cell phone, that's not on my credit report anywhere. Things like that don't usually get reported, but credit cards, loans, car loans, home loans do. Checking your own credit report hurts your score. No, it never puts a ding on your report if you're just checking your own. Okay, so what can you do if you have a negative or an adverse, like I found one on my account? So a hard inquiry, remember, is when usually it's a credit card, a loan company, a car, not a utility, not AT&T. Those are usually soft inquiries. Hard inquiries are the big things, like applying for a credit card, applying for a house loan. If you're applying for insurance, like on your car, depending on how the company reports, it might be hard and it might be soft. My insurance agent is just a soft hit, so, okay. Loan defaults, what causes that to happen? So, I have student loans on here, and I will have them probably till I die, because I called and said, when I die, does my husband get my student loan debt? And they said no, and I said, minimum monthly payment then. So, because they're at a real low interest rate. So loan default, where were we at? Loan defaults can stay on there and will stay on there for 7 years. So you want to not default on a loan unless you just have absolutely no option. Late payments, here it is. You can be late to make a payment by 5 days a month and it won't be reported on your credit score. Now the company can and will charge you a late fee, and they're pretty high, like $39, but within the first 5 days it's not reported as a late payment, but do your best to pay them on time, just because you don't want to waste $39 in late payments. Okay, collections, not paying your bill on time ends up in a collection account. Here is the one that just blows me away. Okay, have health insurance, go to the doctor, I think my health insurance paid it all. Maybe it didn't, maybe I owed $5, and maybe I got the EOB and I didn't pay attention to it, so I never paid that $5. They can turn that $5 over to the collection agency, then it gets reported to your credit, then it drops your score, $5. So defaulting on a $5 medical bill or defaulting on a $70,000 car can have the same impact on your credit because it's considered a collection. So pay attention to those medical bills when you get them. I made that mistake. And then bankruptcy, filing Chapter 7 or 13, that's when there's just no other options. You just have so much debt, you just have no options. But it does stay on your credit for 7 years. Now, when you get to that point, I want to tell you there are credit agencies out there, and there are nonprofit ones. There's one called Consumer Credit Counseling, that what they can do is they can take all your credit cards, negotiate lower interest rates for you, in some cases negotiate even how much you owe, and then you pay one payment to them a month, and then they make payments for you. And it might take 4 or 5 years to do it, but then you paid off everything at a lower interest rate, and it didn't impact your credit score negatively, like a bankruptcy will. Okay. What impacts your credit score positively? Dispute errors. I found 3 errors on mine. I disputed them all, and my credit score went up 104 points. Pay your debts on time. Rent. Not all landlords report to credit agencies, but some do and can. So if you're renting your own place, you need to know that. Ask them if they submit to the agencies. You can have good debt. It's okay to have, like I said, up to 20% of your available balance on a credit card. It's all right. That doesn't ding you at all. You almost have to use credit. Do you guys know who Dave Ramsey is? He's a financial guru, and we try to follow him. He has no credit score, but he's also a millionaire and can pay for everything in cash. Most of us don't have that option, so we need to have a good credit score. And then increasing credit limits, you can do that. Home Depot is one of the credits. Cards that I have right now, building my house, and so I asked them to increase my credit limit so it didn't look like I was going over my 20% available. And most companies will be happy to do that because they want your money. They think if they increase your credit limit, you're going to spend more money. Okay, so there are free credit services out there, and there are tons of them where you can get a free credit score. Candace uses Credit Karma. I happen to use Credit Sesame. My daughter told me about it, so in October or November, I went on and I signed up and created an account in Credit Sesame. Now you can pay for it if you want to, but you can also have it free. So I just do the free version, and every month it updates my credit score. If you wanted to update daily, which I don't think is necessary, but you can pay a fee. But free credit, Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, they're free to get the number. Don't pay to get your number. So this happens to be mine.
If you pull your number, it doesn't hit your
This does not hit your credit at all. No.
So just pulling your report does, but not pulling your number.
Pulling your report does not hurt your credit either. It's just like if you apply for a credit card, a home loan, a bank loan somewhere, then
But
that's a
if
hard
other people-
inquiry.
Okay, so if other people pull your credit score, then that can negatively affect it?
It depends on who's pulling. So like when I got the credit card at Lowe's to get the Black Friday specials, that impacted my credit score. That's why I have a B in, I think this one is the, your credit age. And so that dropped my lower credit age down, and that caused an inquiry. And so that dropped one of my A's down to a B. So, yes.
So that applies for like you trying to get like a phone, if that makes sense, like through AT&T, if they run your thing?
Yeah, they'll run a credit report check, but I think it's a soft one.
Okay.
I don't think it is, because when I looked at because I just helped my son and daughter-in-law get phones in November, and it didn't show up on my credit report that I just ran. So I think they do what's called a soft inquiry, and they're just looking at your number.
Did it take a while for
Basically.
those to fall off? Are they just like the other one, like?
Yeah, see, that one's not even on my credit report. The soft inquiries are not even on my credit report, so anyway, this is the one I like to use, Credit Sesame, but there's lots of them. Credit Karma, Candace uses and she likes it. And I didn't screenshot all of these, but what you do is you click on each one of these, and then it gives you further history. It tells me like why I have a B there, why I have a B there. And remember the chart that showed the 5 components that make up a credit score? So I think this was credit history. My B's are in the fact that I closed out old credit cards not knowing it would hurt me. I opened a new one with Lowe's at Thanksgiving time, and my average credit age, I think, was the one that I said it's 4 years, 11 months or something like that. But when you open these, it'll tell you. And then the other thing it'll do is it'll give you recommendations. So you ask about getting a credit card. So if I click on my recommendations on there, it says, you have a very good chance of getting this credit card and they'll give you $10,000 and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, it says, for me, one of my B's says, you need to increase your amount of available credit. I think, seriously, 110,000 is not enough. But it's because I'm more than 20% using right now because of the building that we're doing. But I know in my brain, I don't need to go increase the amount of credit that I have because I know those are gonna be all rolled over into a home loan. So then my B's gonna go to an A in May when we roll that over to a home loan.
Debbie,
So, yes, yes.
Well, I was just gonna say, if we download this, it's an app, right?
It's on my phone.
Okay, so if we download it, let's just say that our phone gets stolen or we lose it or whatever, or someone just gets a hold of it, you know, for a little bit.
Right.
Can they get into your?
No, because you'll have a password on your phone, number one, and then you'll have a password on this account. Like my Credit Sesame is set up to my thumbprint on my
So you
Apple
can check
phone.
your score all the time.
All the
With
time.
this. That's really cool, I didn't know that.
This is how I use this information from here to increase my credit score 104 points. Because it's like, so see, you go in here and you get your arch, which is kind of what you see. Then down here at the bottom, it says analysis. So when I push that, that shows over the 6 months that I've been participating, how my credit score has gone up. And then here are my 5 categories: credit usage, oops, my mom is calling me. Credit usage, going back, payment history, credit age, account mix, and credit inquiries. So you can then click in each one of those to see, well, why do I have a B in credit usage? And it's showing me that I was using 15% of my credit, and now it's gone down to 8%. That's because I called and got my husband's credit card off of my account, which should never have been on there to start with. And so you can then open each one of these categories to see, why am I there and what do I need to do to turn my B into an A? So like credit inquiries, I have a B, and when I go there it says, well, you had 1 credit inquiry in the last 12 months, and I go and look and it says, oh, it was Lowe's. So it tells you exactly what you've done. And so by using your information, your free information that's available to you, you can increase your credit score. Increasing your credit score decreases the interest rate on things that you want to borrow against. So that's why it's really, really important to maintain a really good credit score. So 3 things you need to do. The first thing is get your credit report. Go to annualcreditreport.com, request just one of them. I would start with TransUnion. I say that just because that's the bank where I work or bank at. That's the one they happen to use. It also has the highest number. It goes up to 850. When you get it, look at it, fix any errors, and then the last thing is know your credit score. But do not ever pay for that credit score because there's plenty of places to get it free now. Credit Sesame, Credit Karma, and there's a lot more. Those are just the 2 I'm most familiar with. Okay, questions, you guys? I just want to encourage you to do this because, like I said, in 6 months I've been able to increase my score 110 points or 104 just by finding errors. My daughter is doing the same thing on hers because she knew hopefully we want the house loan to go into her name, not ours, but if it has to go in ours, okay, but it makes a big difference on the interest loan rate that you will get.
So each company has a different range.
They have a different range.
So like, whereas fair is good, you know, fair is, you know, this number to that number for TransUnion, fair could actually be good in
It could
other
be.
one.
Because like, when I got my Experian, it was a different range. And I was like, how can I be good here and be excellent here? They don't all use the same 5 categories with the same percent. So like in TransUnion, 35% is your payment history. Well, in Experian, maybe payment history is only 30%. So they each have their own category. But just encourage you to get your free report, look for errors, call and get those corrected, and then download a free app to get a free score, and just look and keep doing what you need to do, and eventually you will get there. Yes?
So, what would you say is a too high interest rate for a credit card? Does that make sense?
Well, I think credit cards right now can go up to like 20–25%, and that's way too high. Yeah, that's way too high.
So would you recommend like staying under like 50%?
And your ultimate goal, it doesn't matter if you're making, my mom is retired and lives on about $700 a month, whereas I work here, plus I get a retirement from my teacher ed, plus my husband works, plus my husband gets a retirement. So our income is significantly different from my mom's income, right? Big difference in our income. Her credit score is higher than mine. So it doesn't matter how much money you make, it matters how you're doing those 5 categories. Yeah. So ultimately your goal is to do what I'm able to do, is get those 0% interest credit cards for 6 months or 12 months. Pay no interest.
If you get approved for a credit card, does it necessarily, like, say you don't open the account yet, and you just got approved for it, accepted, but you haven't opened it yet, like, open the account?
Okay.
Does that still affect your credit?
I would tell you go online and get your free credit score. It'll show up immediately. It'll pop up on your screen. Here's your free credit report, and then just see if that account is on there or not. And it's not bad to have a credit. I mean, Dave Ramsey would say do not have credit cards, but Dave Ramsey's a millionaire, or not. So it's okay to have credit cards. The best thing you can do is if you pay it down every month, pay it off, then you don't pay interest anyway. So it doesn't matter if it's at 25%. But research tells us that getting a credit card in your hand makes us almost guaranteed to go use it, because it feels like free money until the bill comes. So, yeah.
I know that for me, well, and I also wanna ask you something, cause I just done.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. Cause it says I grant permission to the credit system to fetch my data.
Yes.
So do yes.
And that's okay. Yeah.
So those those companies that you're talking about that like help you get things knocked off your credit and all of that, are those like reliable and are those good to use?
Yeah,
or-
I have a couple different experiences with that. The one is the Consumer Credit Counseling Report. That's a nonprofit agency, and they're the ones that will negotiate with your credit card companies and your hospitals and whoever you owe money to, and they do it for free. They'll take a monthly donation if you want to give it, but it's not required by law. But what they do is they contact your credit cards and they say, look, she owes you $400 and you're charging her 25% interest. How about $400 and you knock the interest down to 5% or something? So what they do is they negotiate with your companies. Medical hospitals, for example, if you owe $2,000, if you can go in and say, look, I have $1,200 right now I can give you today, often they will take that, because solid money in the hand is worth a promise maybe later. So, but what they do is they negotiate with all your cards, and then you make a monthly payment to them, and they disperse it to the companies. And you sign a contract with them, and you know, it might take you 3 to 5 years to get that paid off, but you get it paid off, and it hasn't hurt your credit score. In fact, it has helped your credit score, because now you have monthly payments coming in regularly to these places. So that's one way. The second thing that happens is there are for-profit companies that say, look, we will help you improve your credit score, and we're going to charge you X amount of dollars a month. I would encourage you on those to just go online and read reviews on those companies to see, is this a legitimate company? My daughter is actually doing that right now, and it is really helping her, because remember, she had all that medical bill stuff, a lot of medical bill stuff. And so she's actually doing it, and they have actually helped her a lot. She pays them a fee a month to do that. And rather than her contacting all these companies saying, look, this is a mistake, they do it on her behalf. And they find the errors for her and get it corrected. So, but I would say she reviewed all the companies to see which one was the best through the Better Business Bureau, and for her, that is working. But I would say just be very cautious on which companies you use. Try to use a nonprofit company always first. So, yes, ma'am.
So what would be the credit card? What would be your recommendation in building your credit? Like,
How to build a credit when I don't even have a credit card. I believe that there are these credit card companies out there that will give you what's called a secure credit card. So in other words, you give them X amount of dollars and they give you a really low limit, like $250 credit limit. But that's okay, a $250 credit limit can impact your scores positively as a $10,000 credit limit as long as you're paying it on time, you keep the balance under 20% of the total amount. It's still gonna positively impact your credit score. So that is how you can get started. Another way is, like with our children, what we did on their first cars, once they were 18, co-signed the loan for them, so the credit is being established in their name, but you're guaranteed to make the payment in case they don't make the payment, the credit union can come back on you. So having someone co-sign for you is a good thing to establish credit, but it also can ruin relationships. Like if you don't pay it and they have to end up paying it, it's gonna ruin your friendship. So you have to be real careful about co-signing, but it is one way that parents can help their children start getting credit established. Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you coming. This will be posted online to take. Make sure you did sign in over here.
oh, yes, sorry.
Debbie.